that information to the baker, who then slips that note into a cake. And you cut the cake and you read the note and everyone finds out, and it's very exciting. Another variation of this celebration is the cake that is served and opened up at the party is either blue or pink. All right, so if that information is on Facebook, then the likelihood is it may be extraneous information, but it's not rechilus because it's out there already. But if it wasn't, and I knew that Sarah was having a boy, should I share that with you automatically? So it may not be compelled. But I think we can probably construct situations where there's just information, and there is a compelling reason for it to be shared, even without the express direction of the person about whom it's about. Yeah?
What about if someone is dying so that you can contact them?
Okay, all right. Let's say someone is very ill and they want you to know so that you can reach out to them.
Or somebody else feels you should know so that...
Okay, all right. So there may be sort of a reason to permit this rechilus. Right, this isn't gossip, this is information that may not necessarily need to be shared, but there can be a compelling interest in sharing. So it could be, or let's say we can sometimes there are situations where this becomes more of an issue. Sometimes within for example, matchmaking. If you know someone has a particular has a particular issue in their past, should that be shared immediately or not, or in advance? Sort of one issue which comes up, and people may have different thoughts about this, is someone is going out with a guy, unless being asked specifically, do you share the information that whether it's he or she, do you share the information that I was married previously? Does that really matter? Is that relevant to the first date? Is that something that needs to be shared in advance? Okay. Okay, if it's a Kohen, correct. Right, there could be reasons. Yeah.
Two examples, which really are questions. Suppose you have a friend and their spouse, you see their spouse is cheating on them. Do you have an obligation to tell your friend, or do you have an obligation to keep your mouth shut?
Right. So I think, remember, that information is disparaging. So that may rise to lashon hara and not just be rechilus. And then the question is, when is lashon hara permitted? It goes beyond our discussion. We're talking now about basically innocuous information. And you could say that no information is 100% innocuous, but some information. Is she pregnant? This person is sick. That's a little bit less.
You want to stick to the innocuous stuff right now?
Yes, let's stick to innocuous for now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, I was going to say, how do you justify it? If you justify it to yourself, is that good enough?
So what are the competing values? And let's talk about this in terms of privacy. We saw that privacy is protected when it comes to monitoring people's private activities, watching them. We saw when it talks about reading their mail. We see that gossip, the prohibition against gossip protects privacy about some of their activities. What if they compete with another value? What about, such as protecting one's family, one's belonging, or one's business? Do you still stay quiet or not? So let's take a look at text number 14.
Can I throw whatever one
Sure.
bonus?
Okay. Okay. So that's for common good. I'm thinking, well, first of all, this flu, and I've noticed that in flu season, the movie Contagion has been on a lot. So I don't know who plans that. Anyone see that? Pretty freaky. Anyway, you must think I just watch TV all day. You should be a rabbi, you too. But it's only things which are 2 or 3 years old. Like, I have no idea what's playing in the theaters today. We are exhorted to refrain from gossiping, as it says, do not be a gossip monger, unless our intention is to remove a harm or to terminate quarrel. So here the Sefer HaChinuch, the book of religious instruction, introduces that there is an exception. If the goal is the pursuit of justice, then privacy can be overridden. In fact, Jewish law mentions that, let's say I take an oath that I swear that I will not divulge information that can potentially save another from harm. That's not considered a valid oath. Right? Remember, Judaism takes oaths very seriously. They talk about the whole idea of holding a Torah scroll, and I swear. That's not binding when it comes to if you swore off sharing this type of information in an important situation. What about when, right? My life and death situation may be telling you that Sarah's pregnant. Is that really true? So text number 15 provides a couple of guidelines, and I think it's very subjective. So it says, don't exaggerate or dramatize the situation that you're reporting. Keep things in perspective. weigh things, weigh your words carefully. And don't say the first thing that comes to your mind whether what you perceive as a fault is actually a flaw. In telling about these deficiencies, we have to be purely motivated to prevent some loss or damage. Even if all the above conditions have been met, one should still seek an alternative to being the bearer of evil things. Talmud tells us when Joshua prayed to the Almighty to reveal him who had taken from the sanctified booty of Jericho, God answered, "Do you think I'm an informer? Draw lots and find out for yourself." We know no clear indication that the role of talebearer is an undesirable one. If there's information your friend must have, try to get him through it some means other than directly informing. Perhaps the most elusive and difficult condition to meet is from the Chafetz Chaim. One has to gauge the effect one's words will have upon the person spoken about. Sometimes the harm that will come to subject through such a revelation will outweigh the prevention of harm to the other party. Bottom line is very subjective, not a lot of concrete guidance. Basically, it's saying use your head, which is probably very dangerous advice. But we see that where there can be a compelling reason, confidentiality may be breached. So there would seem to be an allowance to violate privacy, but we're still, interestingly enough, reluctant to let anyone read someone else's mail. Right, so we're careful. Don't say too much. Maybe if you need to, say something. Look at text number 16. This is after we've pointed out that there could be reasons that you could share some information. When it comes to the mail, someone please read text number 16. Back to Rabbi Chagiz again. On page 26. Someone out loud.
If someone sent by messenger a sealed letter with a written malediction against anyone who might read the letter without permission, but the messenger is afraid that the letter contains information that might cause him harm, what should the messenger do? This is a perplexing situation. If the messenger opens the letter, he will violate Rabbi
Gershom, yeah.
ban. If the messenger delivers the letter, perhaps something truly malicious is written therein. To return it to the sender is obviously not an option because the sender will find someone else to deliver it. The only available option is to destroy the letter.
Ah. So Rabbi Chagiz is still concerned about opening someone else's letter. Right? He says better to destroy the letter rather than violate the privacy. Why are letters different? Why is there this reluctance? Remember, in a letter, you're not sure what the contents of the letter are. You think it's something you need to know. You're not sure it's something you need to know. You open the letter, you can find out a whole lot of stuff. I have another cultural reference. John Cheever. Anyone know what that's about? Seinfeld, Cabin, Burns. The letter's the only thing that survives, right? You know, brings the letters in any event, for those who are not Seinfeld fans. There's a cabin that George and his fiancée go to, and they spend time there, and while they're there, they burn down the cabin. Everything is destroyed. And George's girlfriend's father is very upset because the cabin meant so much to him, it's completely burned, and he's distraught. And one thing is saved, a box of letters. And the letters are brought, the doorman brings it right upstairs, you know, oh, here are the letters, the only thing that was saved from the cabin, this is what the insurance people dropped off. And the family takes the letters and begins reading them out loud about the relationship that the girlfriend's father had with John Cheever. Oh, it was a homosexual relationship. And they're reading this, and the father comes out, and he's, you know, shut. In any event, you have to watch it. It's much funnier than but you don't know what's in it. You thought you're getting, oh, well, wonderful, some family history. Then you find the deep, dark secrets about someone you thought you knew. You got to be careful about letters. So they talk about the idea of destroying it. If you're not sure what's in it, destroy it. Now, what will the sender or the recipient think? It could be a little bit strange. Blame the post office. But it's a little bit strange. There is another suggestion given by other rabbinical authorities. And this is, I think, I may like it because it gives me some power, but they say take it to the rabbi. Let the rabbi read the letter, because he will have, he'll be able to adjudicate whether this is something that's necessary or not. Or they say take it to a Beit Din, take it to 3 rabbis. In any event, it just highlights the fact that the more concern there is for what the information may lead to, then the more hesitant we are to violate privacy. Once again, highlighting the role of privacy.
What
Yes?
if you're an undercover policeman and you're a messenger for a drug cartel? And you're afraid that a letter is telling the other guy to kill you?
Huh? Okay. You may want to destroy it.
Well, but then if it doesn't show up, they'll just send another letter.
All right, okay. These are some of the issues that will not be addressed tonight. But you can see how sensitive with regards to why the male was even more concerned about than just sort of telling you that Sarah's pregnant. So let's go back. Let's look page 27. Let's resolve the issues. Right? When it comes to looking into another's private residence, an improper violation of privacy. Does it make a difference if one uses binoculars? Is it a violation? What would Judaism say? Right? Looking at others' residence, an invasion of privacy, clearly prohibited, even without binoculars. Stay away. Don't look. Right? While secular law wouldn't see this as necessarily an actionable offense, Jewish law sees this as prohibited. What about number 2, the nanny cam? What do you think?
Well, it's an employee.
That's
Problem.
Proper.
Proper, okay. So, secular law is interesting. Generally, video recording in one's own home is allowed. But they talk about the fact that this may be something that you need to have consent to the parties. Some people say there are laws that if it's a private conversation and one party consents to the recording, which meaning I want to record my conversation with you, I'm allowed to do that. What happens if it's a nanny and the child? So the parent has the right to decide for the child. If the parent is authorizing this type of recording, then it would be okay. Overall, it would seem to be okay in secular law. Let's break it down in terms of Jewish law. It's your property. Right? You're not violating someone else's privacy in terms of property, but it's the nanny's privacy. At the same time, what are you concerned about?
Child's welfare.
Child's safety. And that may outweigh the privacy of the nanny. But it could be a little bit of a slippery slope. So some say, let the rabbis review the tapes. Tape it and see if there's anything to be concerned about. Again, I think that option was given by the rabbis themselves. Or, this is something that's very simple. You can inform the nanny that she should not expect privacy. Then, of course, you're sort of tipping her off, and that could be a little dangerous. I think option number 3 is we can rely upon the fact this is not opening someone's mail. This is concerned about just someone's basic activities taking place in my house. Let's monitor properly. So what about employer using a camera or audio recording device to monitor employees in the workplace?
I think it's not bad.
Proper without equivocation.
Not in a bathroom.
Okay, not in a bathroom.
Or something.
Okay.
It's been held legally.
Can they?
So, what's the bottom line? So I think that you could, because there's no expectation because surveillance is permissible. No, you disagree?
I think legally it's not allowed.
Well, what about if you
Yeah, I think
warn
not.
employees that there's surveillance? You think it removes a deterrent?
Well, in this situation, you could tell that you're going to. That
Right.
would be the
Correct.
code of the workplace.
Correct. I think it's a little bit different in the workplace.
Yeah,
The
it's not
deterrent,
like that.
correct.
Yeah.
There, the nanny will then you'll
then you can-
chase her on the ground. She'll do all the bad stuff out of the house. Here,
Yeah.
correct. Okay.
But you
Yeah.
get on a lot of the phone calls you call in and they say this call may be recorded.
Right.
To ensure.
Right.
They don't say because we're checking out our employees, but to ensure accuracy or something like that.
Right.
So the point is
Right.
they're being warned and.
Correct. Work is a little bit different than work is a little bit different than work is a little bit different than at home. So what about reading employee email? So let's look at text number 17, page 29. Let's see what the court said in this case that we introduced in the first place. We do not find a reasonable expectation of privacy in email communications voluntarily made by an employee to his supervisor or the company's email system notwithstanding any assurances that such communications would not be intercepted by management. Once plaintiff communicated the alleged unprofessional comments to a second person over an email system which was apparently utilized by the entire company, and a reasonable expectation of privacy was lost, which may also indicate sort of what would happen in terms of being able to video surveillance of an employee. Even we found that an employee had a reasonable expectation of privacy in the contents of his email communications over the company email system, we do not find that a reasonable person would consider the defendant's interception of these communications to be a substantial and highly offensive invasion of his privacy. You know, he may regret it, but don't be stupid. Moreover, the company's interest in preventing inappropriate or unprofessional comments or even illegal activity over its email system outweighs any privacy interest the employee may have in those comments. So, can an employer read employee's email to ensure appropriate behavior and work efficiency? Well, you know, the employee has no reasonable expectation of privacy, so then therefore, we would say that I think the Jewish law would work. But this sort of opening someone else's mail, Judaism may have a more restrictive view.
It's mail both ways.
Correct. So what, you know, so while secular law seems clearly on the side that the employer can read it because it's a business relationship, Jewish law may be a little bit more strict because of the mail situation. So what could we say about that? Is there a way? What might we say so that Jewish law would, Jewish law not allowing the employer to read the employee's email, we can find an argument for it. It's mail, no exceptions. What might we say to mitigate this? Yeah.
It's the property of the organization.
Okay, right.
It's not
Business.
personal property.
It's not personal property. Okay.
No, I think the employer has an obligation on the part of his business to have it the best it can be, and therefore that would justify him looking at the email.
Okay. You know, so I think that that also sort of is saying the business environment is different. Yeah.
Also, can an employer be sued because of the content, or are they legally responsible?
Well, that's the idea. It's not yours. It doesn't belong to you. You don't have the right to expect that when you contributed to that sort of group, that group email system should be exclusively yours. It belongs to the company. So it seems that one way to mitigate is to issue the warning. In a case like this before, remember we said in a business situation, issuing the warning that you may be monitored or video would seem to be a good idea, and it doesn't seem to harm anything. Same thing here with the email system. People should be aware that there's nothing that is that is confidential, because this is the company policy, and we have our document retention policy, and that everything that's in the system is going to be viewed. So even though secular law says it's completely permitted outright, for Jewish law it would seem to be helpful to first issue the warning. What about our next case? Read a spouse's text messages. Based on what we've seen. Jewish law?
No.
Jewish law would be pretty negative because it's mail. What about secular law? Secular law is sort of split. If you go look online and try to identify what would happen, this often comes up in divorce cases where one spouse or the other one spouse records the other and tries to present that as evidence to make their case before a judge. And some courts have accepted this evidence and found in favor of the person who did the recording, and some courts have thrown out the evidence by saying that it is